Fixing a juvenile justice system that even leaders admit is broken.
But some stakeholders tell us they're already seeing progress. Tonight, our Robbie Owens is sharing a conversation with Commissioner John Wiley Price on accountability and why you should care.
Number one is the community needs to be safe. Number two, the young people, according to the family code, needs to be rehabilitated to the best of our ability.
But Dallas County's best needs to get better. An outside review requested by DA John Creuzot found that low-risk juvenile offenders were in custody too long, likely learning more bad habits.
64% of them go home eventually. The problem is they've been locked up with the worst criminals for 6 months. And so who's learning from who?
And the report brought all of us to some light. And that's what I appreciate about Judge Creuzot in mentioning that there's shared responsibility.
Commissioner Price says county stakeholders are now more fully embracing a risk assessment tool to determine which young defendants are more likely to reoffend. Access to services before getting into trouble, however, has been a challenge.
I get calls when people say, you know, little Johnny is acting out, little Susan's acting out. What can I do?
So he's applauding Dallas ISD's significant investment in mental health to address the underlying causes of some behavioral issues.
DISD has more psychologists, more counselors than any other district in the country.
If your kid is not in trouble or you haven't been the victim of a crime, why should our viewers care?
Because it's just a matter of time.
In Dallas, Robbie Owens, CBS News, Texas.
Public safety bill, a ban on putting juveniles in solitary confinement. It comes in the wake of a series of KARE 11 investigations on the topic.
Lauren Lemanchek explains the ban had the support of both parties.
Yeah, he's being treated like an animal.
That's how this mother felt, visiting her son at Hennepin County Juvenile Detention. The 16-year-old, mentally ill and suicidal, held for weeks like this. In isolation, only able to talk to his mom or even a social worker through a 6x18 slit in a metal door.
It's making his mental health illness worse.
The boy was being held in what's known as disciplinary room time, Minnesota's term for solitary confinement. His lawyer's reaction?
I was appalled.
And the boy isn't the only one. Since 2018, KARE 11 has learned youth at Red Wing and other DOC licensed jails were ordered to solitary for a day or longer more than 7,500 times. Sometimes that isolation is much worse. At the 3 largest juvenile lockups, kids were ordered confined to solitary for 5 days or longer, nearly 700 times. And Hennepin County once sent a kid to solitary for 34 days. Kids like Noah, now 18, who describes what it's like.
You don't feel human. It's like being in an insane asylum. It drives you crazy.
Department of Corrections Commissioner Paul Schnell responded to our findings in February.
Not okay. That's unacceptable. Things that are happening here that you're describing.
And now lawmakers have taken action.
But we want to make sure that there are strict safeguards around that.
Passing a provision that bans putting youth in solitary for the use of punishment, while acknowledging that sometimes kids need to be separated for safety. Democrats and Republicans agreed with the experts that putting kids in solitary for long periods makes us all less safe when they're eventually released.
But in the end, it may cause long-term problems that might turn them into more violent, less mentally stable people.
Worries echoed by those who know it best.
The way we're treated just makes people, just brings them to violence and stress and depression and just makes everybody hopeless.
Under this new ban, youth could still be isolated temporarily for safety. Juvenile lockups have until the end of the year to enact the ban and come up with some new alternatives. For KARE 11 Investigates.
State regulators voting today, finding 2 of LA's troubled juvenile halls unsuitable to live in. And now the county has 2 months to move nearly 300 young people.
But where will they go? And Eyewitness News reporter Jory Rand is in the newsroom now with all the details. Jory?
David, Ellen, LA County juvenile halls have been problematic for years now. The state has ordered them to be improved, But problems remained, with drugs finding their way into facilities and severe staffing shortages causing a lot of problems. One volunteer said on Mother's Day this year, 96% of staff called out of work. It culminated with an overdose death 2 weeks ago today. And now the state is telling LA County, you didn't fix it, so we will.
Earlier this month, 18-year-old Brian Diaz was found dead from a drug overdose inside the Barry J. Nydorf Juvenile Hall in Sylmar. It was just the latest major incident to take place at this facility.
We have to get this right. We have to, or there's going to be another Brian Diaz. There could be another Brian Diaz any day now. There's nothing stopping it until we can get people to work.
Today, a state board overseeing juvenile detention centers took action, ordering LA County to remove all youth awaiting legal proceedings from that facility in Sylmar, as well as from Central Juvenile Hall in Lincoln Heights. The list of violations was long and egregious.
During nighttime shifts, youth continue to urinate in their rooms if staff are unable to respond to their request. Both facilities continue to deal with call-outs, overtime, inability to provide increased staffing for high-risk youth, and are unable to get youth regularly to programs, recreation, outside for exercise, and to school either on time or at all.
At today's meeting, LA County admitted shortcomings and asked for a 5-month extension to execute their plan.
First of all, we'd like to ask for a continuance up to 150 days.
But the board was having none of it.
It seems that if we had a similar plan a year ago, that we wouldn't be in this spot today, but we don't, and we did not.
Your presence in the plan you outline is the first evidence that I've seen in the last year and a half that Los Angeles County has taken this matter seriously. Fortunately, as Chief Haynes says, it comes really a year too late.
But I will say I've heard this before from Los Angeles County. And I think the time has come to take an extraordinarily difficult move.
The county now has 60 days to get those kids out of both facilities and into the previously closed Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall in Downey. The county argued that's not enough time, saying the deadline would cause chaos and disruption. The board responding, these kids already live in chaos and disruption. In a statement today, the county said while disappointed with today's decision, they will comply. In the meantime, until effective changes can be made, facilities will remain understaffed, employees overworked, and those youth housed there woefully underserved.
To enforce a curfew for juveniles is getting pushback. For where police plan to house these law-breaking teens. Good evening and thank you for joining us for Action News 5 at 10. I'm Kelly Cook. Tonight, Greenlaw community members are speaking out about using their community center as a holding spot for the new juvenile crime abatement program. Action News 5's Walter Murphy has the details about what community members discussed ahead of a meeting with MPD's top cop.
I had no idea. No.
People who live in the Greenlaw community say they had no idea that the Memphis Police Department planned to turn their community center into a holding spot for juveniles who were apprehended for breaking curfew in downtown Memphis. Now, that would be part of the program announced last month called the Juvenile Crime Abatement Program.
They did not knock on anybody's door. They did not walk the streets. They did not get any input from residents that live in this community about what they want.
So Vincent Spriggs and other community members took it upon themselves to get the word out in Greenlaw and let the community know what the city had planned for their community center. And on Sunday, they held a meeting at Black Seed Urban Farms to strategize ahead of another meeting that the Memphis Police Department will hold on Tuesday night. The overwhelming consensus
that they don't want Greenlaw Community Center to be a holding center.
While I do think there's a valid concern for crime and safety, especially in the downtown area, we look at other alternatives, in my opinion.
They worry property values could decrease in the Greenlaw neighborhood as a result of having the holding center located there. But the main concern was that the community center wouldn't be able to give kids constructive, safe things to do in a neighborhood that already lacks fun things for the youth to get involved in, which they think would only exacerbate the crime problem MPD says that they're trying to fix.
People don't really have a way to access those resources. So, I mean, if it's in the community, it's literally a community center. So let's make it a center for the resources for the community.
And on Tuesday, this group, along with others in Greenlaw, plan to propose countermeasures to Police Chief CJ Davis when she hosts a community forum.
If you have ever been to Greenlaw Community Center, you need to show up You need to be present, because if you don't have a seat at the table, that means that you're on a menu.
In Memphis, Walter Murphy, Action News 5.
Any prisoner can tell you that a peculiar economy exists behind bars. Items like cigarettes are currency in transactions for everything, from food to toilet paper. Goods are in short supply, especially for those in solitary confinement. While serving 2 years for burglary, I reported on how people in New York's so-called special housing units, or SHU, buy and sell their goods. To understand how the economy works in what we call the box, you have to know how the units are laid out. In New York prisons, most solitary prisoners live in massive cell blocks, separate from the general population. There can be 200 cells stacked multiple tiers high, each rarely larger than 6 by 8 feet. Each cell often holds 2 men. For months, even years, people in the box are confined for 23 or 24 hours a day. Viewing the SHU from the outside, you don't see the cells themselves, but rather the attached recreation pens. Rec time is a clamorous affair. When the doors unlock, prisoners walk out. As men shout to each other from one side to the other, some guys are having conversations, others scream obscenities and threats. Amid the cacophony, people call out what they're trying to sell or buy, enlisting intermediaries to better communicate. Commissary is extremely limited in solitary. Only after many months of good behavior may a SHU prisoner get the privilege to buy food, although it's just small snacks. For the vast majority, their only purchases are hygiene products and stamps, a major currency because everybody needs them. Whatever you're buying or selling, you must learn how to fish. Fishing lines are made of ripped strips of sheets, towels, and clothes. With thin enough strips, you can make about 100 feet of line out of a single bed sheet. To fish, you attach the item you're selling to the line along with a weight, such as a bar of soap or a 20-year-old magazine. When you toss the line towards your buyer, the weight creates momentum needed to carry your item through the air and drag it towards the right cell after it lands. Of course, commodities can fall off the line or land in places where they can't be recovered.